All right, we are recording. So Brian, now's the time to turn off that far computer. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So thank you everyone for joining. And this is our fifth virtual meeting, and we are contemplating and talking about how we're going to get together again in the future. That is the plan when it's safe to do so, in whatever form we can do it. So that is our plan. In the meantime, if you want to see the past 4 meetings, they're all on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and I think I sent that out, and I'll send out the recording of this one tomorrow, so you can check it out if you want to just watch it over and over again to hear Mark perform. I know I will. So just again to remind everybody why we're here, why we started COIN. It's for education and networking, so that people in the community can learn from each other and share expertise and share their time to help investors and to help the community. And we have some plans in the near future to make improvements and make COIN better than it has been. I'm really pleased that we've been able to stay connected during this the pandemic, and I'm very pleased that we're still going strong. And then once we can get back together, I know we'll keep going even better. So today, briefly, we're going to have just real estate tips from the community. I think this is a great idea that Marc Kade came up with. And when you come up with ideas, then you get tasked with making it come to fruition. So in a minute, I'm going to pass it over to him, and he's going to narrate and facilitate hearing some just the best real estate tips that our community has to offer. So I'm really excited about this meeting. And then I just wanted to highlight, next month, our meeting will be August 18th, and we're going to have Nick Karakayan, I always say that wrong, sorry, Nick, and Paul Fatkins from Nesters are going to talk about renovation, redesign, and optimizing the home for function and value. So they're going to talk about flipping and how you can make the most out of a property after you buy it on the flip to make it work best for whoever's going to live there, and also give you an excellent return on your investment. So I'm excited about that one. I know that'll be a great meeting. And with that, I will turn it over to Mark, and Mark will run the show today. So go ahead, Mark.
Well, hey, everybody. Good to see you again. I am not meeting you or doing this from my outside place that my patio like I did last time, where I had technical issues. So not the best backdrop, but hopefully I won't have any technical issues this time. But yeah, basically I wanted to try to get all the best of all of our experiences, and try to share some tips that maybe we could all learn from, some different things that we didn't necessarily think of, because I always find the smallest little things really can make all the difference in how a transaction comes together for you, or maybe help you to avoid a possible pitfall. So it's really about learning little things that can make the biggest difference. They're all kind of take it or leave it things, and they may or may not affect exactly what you're doing in a real estate business, but they're kind of fun and enjoyable to listen to as well. To give you a little example of what I'm talking about, I'm going to give you start us off with my #1 pet peeve or tip for any long-term investor. Okay, that rent and hold kind of long-term investor. I believe wholeheartedly that all your rental calculators are meaningless unless you really understand your 2 biggest expenses that will destroy your cash flow, and that is vacancy and maintenance. And it actually starts with maintenance. And when it comes to maintenance, my biggest pet peeve is Glacier Bay. Never, 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 never buy anything by Glacier Bay. All right. And really and it's not that I hate Glacier Bay, I just hate cheap products. So if you buy a cheap product and you have the idea that, hey, this is just a rental property, so what does it really matter? Well, it matters a lot, because that Glacier Bay faucet that you spend $30 buying instead of spending $60 for a Moen, a Kohler, or any other American Standard or nicer product, it's going to break in a year. In 1 year, I guarantee you that Glacier Bay aerator will bust, and you'll have to get it replaced with another 50-cent aerator, but you'll spend $25 sending a maintenance guy out there to fix it. And then in another year, the actual seals will break inside and start dripping water out everywhere. So you're just going to replace it anyway. So that's going to be more money that you spend. And plus, guess what? Your tenant, who is your customer, is not enjoying your place as much, and is more, you're adding things to make them want to leave. And again, maintenance and vacancy is my two biggest things that kill all long-term rental relationships. So that's kind of like what we're talking about today is, tips that I find. You may say, Mark, you're crazy. I love gauge surveying. Fine. If that's your thing, that's fine. No problem. But that's something that I find that works for me. Use it for any, kind of uses that you have. One more that I'll throw out there for myself is avoid carpeting. If you're in a long-term rental game, carpeting costs you a ton of money replacing. Spend more money up front and buy some luxury vinyl plank flooring. It will cost you more money today, but it will look great and it will last a long time. So those are my two tips. What we're going to do is go to some different people here in our coin community and ask for some of their tips and what they have out there they want to share with us. We're going to start first with Ryan Mainwaring. He's got a couple of good ideas that he wanted to share. Ryan, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Mark. I definitely want to second one, you're being frugal versus cheap comment. I love that. So buy the quality stuff that'll last long. And then we actually do the luxury vinyl plank and all of our stuff now because of exactly what you said. Carpet has cost us a small fortune when we turned properties over. So, and it lasts a lot longer. But getting back to a couple of the tips the two tips I like that have helped me most, and I've actually gone through these and wish someone would have told me these from day one, is one, figure out your why in real estate. So it helps with, and this is what, like, I use this to anchor back to everything I do now. So I actually, I got critical time for me was when I picked up Miracle Morning 3-4 years ago, and it helps you create your why and your vision for your life and all this stuff around like what are you here for, and you can create kind of your goals, your lifetime goals. What this does is it helps you when you look at partners, deals, markets, or the type of strategy. If you know your why, it helps you get through, make decisions on all those things. So like a couple of mine, and it can't be just like I just want to make money. It's got to be a little more than that. Like I want to be financial freedom, but for why? Is it to spend time with family? Is it to create generational wealth? Like whatever it is, if you can get more concrete on it, and it doesn't just be like a one-word sentence, that helps you figure out your real estate strategy and also get through the grind every day. One of the benefits I've actually realized recently is listening to one of the Bigger Pockets podcasts. It was this couple, Jay Papasan and his wife, talked about how to set goals with your significant other. So I actually started sharing my whys with her and why I do the real estate and all that I had previously, but a lot of it was to make life better with us. So now she's much more supportive of what I'm doing now and is trying to figure out how do we fast track it. So some of the things that she finds valuable and that she's looking forward to, they align with some of my goals as well. So I think understanding your why and then communicating that with your significant other, if you have one, is hugely helpful because one, you'll figure out why you're doing everything, but then also you can kind of create a co-partnership with your significant other, and then they'll start supporting each other. The other one is, for me, is be dependable. So always do what you say. I think in this industry, if you can get stuff done and live up to what you say, you will succeed no matter what in real estate. If I find someone that if they tell me we're going to get this property done on this date, or if they're going to miss it, they at least communicate that ahead of time. Like that is, I can trust them, and it builds that relationship. For instance, I'll use Mark here. Mark and I had a call yesterday, and I said, hey, I need some help with some refinancing. And he gave me the great advice of, hey, wait, here's the time. But he built that relationship previously by giving me advice on some of the rates and all that. But he was dependable. Like he got on the call while on his day off. We had a conversation that lasted a little longer than expected. But I know he's going to email me back here shortly about kind of the next steps. And I know when he sends me something, I have to give him information immediately right away because I got to be dependable. And I know moving forward, we're going to build this great relationship. He's going to help me grow, and I'm going to help him somehow, some way. So I think those two things, figure out your why and then be dependable so that you execute, get things done, and you'll be successful in real estate.
Hey, appreciate that plug, Ryan. It's always good to get some good feedback out here. But actually, actually something you just said I really liked was teamwork with your partner. Having the same focus. I know that with my wife, and I know a lot of the other members here. You got Nate and Amanda. They really work hand in hand a lot. So having a focused goal between partners is sometimes a really big thing. Really successful. I want to go to our next guy, Brandon Bartley. He's newer to the real estate market. Met him last year. He bought his first a really unique property. He bought a single family home with a detached accessory unit as his first hot property. So he's doing a little bit of a house hack kind of in there. And he's had a really couple good ideas that he wanted to share. Take it away, Brandon.
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Sure can.
All right, yeah, so the first one that I had was network consistently and surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do. Once I realized that, I mean, that was completely life-changing for me. I mean, to me, networking is the key to everything, especially in real estate. And there's a reason that, you know, every guest speaker, whether in this meeting or others, always talks about networking, you know, going to meetups. You know, there's so many different ways to make money in real estate, so it's easy to really get caught up in the analysis paralysis because you want to learn a little bit about everything. So for me, it was important to really narrow down exactly what I wanted to do, and from there start surrounding myself with the people who are already doing those things. And I know for newer people that can be a little intimidating to, you know, reach out to the more experienced investors, but I'm personally am still yet to come across someone in real estate who, one, doesn't love just talking about real estate all the time, and who will not have at least a conversation with you. So, you know, and when you meet those people, try to find any way you can to either add value or do something that shows them that you're serious and you're not there just to waste their time. You know, there's a ton of people in this group alone who are very good at networking. So I, you know, advise anyone who's not comfortable with networking or newer to, you know, try to reach out to those people, be around those people at meetups when we can, you know, get back in person. You know, and observe how they interact with other people, and even networking with other newer investors is also extremely valuable. You know, not only talking to the experienced people, but also people who are newer, you know, more in the area of where you're at. You know, there's another newbie meetup group that Josh Hively and Harvey Yergin are part of that is awesome as well. You know, once you really start to build up that network and meet the right people, then that's really when things start to really change for you. And the next one that I had was be patient and don't compare your level 1 with someone else's level 20. I mean, obviously having patience in real estate is very important. As we all know, it's not a path to get rich quick. You know, there's a lot of distractions out there. HGTV and all the gurus who make it seem like you can, you know, flip a house in one day and make $100,000. But it's important to just ignore those things and realize that, you know, you have to put in a lot of years of hard work, effort. I personally don't know any investor who's successful who didn't have to put in a lot of years of, you know, consistent effort. So yeah, being extremely patient is valuable. And then when you're new, it's also easy to get caught up in looking at what the more experienced people are doing. And, you know, say you're looking at someone who's in year 10 and you're in year 1 or 2, it's easy to look at what they're doing and kind of compare yourself to that and think that that's where you should be at this point and get a little discouraged. But I think it's just important just to learn to be patient. You know in the beginning, you're obviously going to make a lot of mistakes and fail, and just learn to really just keep thinking long term.
Well, that's always great advice, Brandon. We really appreciate that. I always agree with you. I think HGTV makes it seem way too easy. Like, yeah, it's just awesome. You watch the other shows like Chicago. There's a Chicago renovation show where it's like someone being saved because everything went wrong. I think those are the better ones to watch. But awesome advice to be patient. I love that. And I really like, you know, when I saw your comments, I was like, yeah, I love that whole idea of like level 1 versus level 20. It takes some time, but it all gets there. It actually kind of leads in a little bit of really just being, you know, working with other people trying to gain. I met with Nick today, Karakan, and he couldn't be on the meeting tonight, but he did want to share a couple tips that he had with us. One of them was, he's into doing some flipping and some other projects and stuff. And he said, get people to come and see your project, a consultant, a friend, another investor, have people come and look at what you're doing, not to build your ego. This is not like, oh yeah, you're great. It's not a Facebook campaign where everyone says everything's fancy and great. What he wants is someone to come and say, hey, you know what I think you might be missing is this, or I don't like this. And I actually went and saw one of his projects today, and hopefully I gave him a little bit of good advice, because it's a Clintonville home, and I told him a cheap way to maybe kind of make a halfway finished basement that's kind of acceptable for a Clintonville area. Because he's got an amazing project he's doing right now in Clintonville. If you ever get a chance, go check it out. Definitely do. He says hope it can be done real soon. But I think that was great advice to bring people in that you trust to give you some feedback on what you're doing, so that way you still have time to make those adjustments down the road. And then there's also one he said is really important is finishes. And not just what you pick for finishes or how you finish, it is the choices in the design. He said a lot of people leave the design features up to your general contractors. And he's like, most contractors are not designers. And he's like, I see Urbanski laughing. And it's so true. I am not a designer. And I will tell you, we have used Nick and Sarah constantly for their opinions on things, because hey, we trust their opinion and they are designers. So he said, go find, if you're not a designer, know your strengths and weaknesses and go get someone, because the finished product and how it really comes together makes all the difference. So that could be the difference of tens of thousands of dollars sometimes if you're flipping, or it could be the difference on what your Airbnb is making some success or not too. So appreciate Nick's input on those. I wanted to throw it out to Nate. Everyone knows Nate. He's our burr specialist, does a lot of other things too. Him and Amanda are just crushing it. But Nate, you had actually, I'm going to give you a special 3 tips. You're the only one getting 3 tips to put out there. I liked all 3 of them. So go ahead and go for it.
That's exciting. Man, it's good to see some of your faces even in this format. But great tips, definitely so far. And mine actually begin by kind of, I think, overlapping with Brandon a little bit. The first one was just basically to play your own game. He kind of said being a level 1 at level 5 or level 20, but even if that's not the case, your game just might be different than that person's game. And comparing yourself to other people, comparing yourself to people that you want to model after, that's one thing, but comparing yourself to people who have different personalities, different resources, different dispositions, different goals than you doesn't really, get you anywhere. It doesn't mean just because, you see someone flipping 10 houses a year and they've got 80 units, it doesn't mean that you have to do that just to be successful. And I say, remember, if you bought one single family investment property per year for the next 20 years, you would be so far ahead of where the average person is financially. That would be life changing. That doesn't mean that you can't, decide to go big into multifamily or just become a flipper or whatever you want to do. But I think the most important thing is that being an investor is going to challenge you. And so you want to work within parameters that you're comfortable with, working with levels of risk that you're comfortable with levels of money that you're comfortable with, until you improve your skills and, let your path lead you where it is. But my number one, and I don't really think this just applies to real estate, but in life in general, is just play your own game. Let that person, work their strategy. If there's something you can learn from it, great. But otherwise, think out your strategy and be comfortable with it and stick to it, and then compare yourself to the goals that you have and if you're achieving those versus somebody else's goals. That's the first one. And kind of following up with that, especially as a newbie, and I want to point out that we are all newbies at whatever the next stage of life that we're challenging is. You could be doing your shtick for 10 years, and when you decide to branch out, guess what? You're a newbie in that new field. And so something I learned from a professor many years ago is she told me that she thought it was very healthy to be embarrassed every day. And I think that it's okay for you to not know things and to not understand things and to be confused by things and to ask stupid questions. Because that is actually how experience is formed. You are not going to step up and nail your first project. You are going to make a lot of mistakes with your first tenants. You're going to make mistakes with your 100th tenant because some new situation is going to pop up. So I just say embrace your naivete. Accept that you don't know stuff. If you don't know it, don't pretend like you know it. Don't be embarrassed to ask somebody if you don't know, because I think you'll find generally people understand there's other aspects of their business that they don't know, that they're happy to, that they have to ask people about. And also people like the opportunity to be able to help you out because they've probably been through it as well. So when someone says, or, when you're asking someone a question, a lot of people enjoy the opportunity to help you through a challenge that they've already tackled. So it's totally okay for your, early experiences to be sloppy. It's more important that you're moving forward and that you're learning, and just be totally comfortable with the fact that you are going to screw stuff up, make bad decisions, and just make mistakes. And you're probably going to do that even when you're 20 years in. My final one is just is a little more dry than some of these others, and that is just basically that if you have tenants, you should have an attorney. Just don't make it up as you go along. There is going to be every circumstance that you can imagine that pops up when you have tenants, and there are risks that you can subject yourself to simply out of ignorance or by assuming that you understand, again, what I just referenced, assuming that you understand how something works. And I know that when you are just getting started out, attorneys are expensive. Even when you've been in business for a while, attorneys are expensive. But the one time that attorney saves your butt because they told you to watch out for a curveball that you weren't watching out for, and it ended up being proper. And not only that, but anything that you're having tenants sign, anything that you're putting out there into the public, unless you have a law degree, I wouldn't be very comfortable, putting language into contracts and things like that. And at least if you've worked with your attorney to create those things, it also reduces your stress level a little bit, knowing that, hey, we're covering all our bases. We're going about this the right way. We're being cautious, trying to make sure that we're being safe and managing our risk here. So, I'm sure if you're a flipper or, a private money lender, there are different needs for an attorney, but I would say if you have tenants, get an attorney. That's all I got.
I think that's great advice. I think a lot of times people think of attorneys as like that extra outside source that you're going to go spend money and you can always save there. No, they're part of your network. I don't have one. I have two attorneys, and I can call either one of them, text them, and get a quick answer. But you have to build a relationship with that attorney. And yes, it seems very dry, but it is an essential part of your machine of whatever you're trying to do. So I know Michael Gefford's been a fantastic friend of the coin community. So if you haven't met him, you should. So.
And also, if you make that attorney part of your team, and that's a long-term relationship, they already understand your strategy. They understand your comfortability with different risk levels. So now you guys are working together to forward a strategy. You're building your decision now off of decisions you made 3 years ago versus just kind of pulling someone into the fold when you need an attorney and they don't understand where you're coming from.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we got another person who's been with us for a long time. I think he's been here maybe since the very beginning of COIN, when our very first meeting. Brian Urbanski, he's always got words of wisdom for everything. He actually provided some really cool ideas here. I did limit him to 2 because Brian could have about 105, but Brian's been doing it for so long. And if you want to hear all 105 of them, I'm sure he'll be happy to meet you with coffee sometime. But Brian, I gave you 2 to kind of focus in on. Why don't you share them with the group, please?
Thanks, Mark. It's a really good idea to keep the reins pulled on me because I have been known to go off on a tangent on a time or two. One thing I do want to point out, you guys mentioned Mike Gefford. Yeah, he's done a lot of different things for me, not just landlord-tenant stuff, but he's done a quiet title action, and I had bogus liens that were on several of my properties that he was very helpful and instrumental with. So I want to send a shout out to Mike as well. I don't think he's on the call, but he's got a lot of resources in his business that he can help you with. My two suggestions were pretty simple and straightforward, and they're more along the lines of property management if you have rental properties. And one of the challenges that we've always had that seems to have been exacerbated by the COVID crisis is getting reliable contractors that well, first of all, we'll just show up. Today, that's kind of a premium to get those folks, and to be able to have an opportunity to get higher qualified people the first time around instead of the second or third or fourth. There are a couple of websites I've used before that I have found helpful. I mean, nothing's perfect, of course, and you got to make sure that you talk to the contractor and they know what your expectations are. But one of them is called TaskRabbit, TaskRabbit.com, and the other one is called Home Advisor. If any of you that have rentals are probably familiar, if not with TaskRabbit, at least with Home Advisor. And the difference between going here, I mean, I think it was Nate that said, having that network, and probably several of you have mentioned it, but having a network to go to like Coin and being able to reach out to other people that are experienced is probably your best route. But when you need somebody that you can't find, in your network, you're kind of left with going online and trying to figure out who's who. And we haven't used Craigslist for probably several years. Home Advisor, what I like about Home Advisor is and I don't have any affiliate program or anything with them. They're just a pretty decent resource. They vet their contractors, and the contractors have to, submit an application and these other things to be on there. And there's a fee for that. And you also have a ratings system. It's kind of like, Amazon in a way, where once you have worked with somebody, if they're not very good, or if you were disappointed in any way, you can let that be known. Or if they did a great job for you, you can also give feedback there. That's something that Craigslist doesn't have. And TaskRabbit is more along the lines of they're actually a third-party intermediary, kind of like Amazon, where you actually go through them and you pay them, and then they pay the contractor once the job is finished. So if you're looking for contractors and you're having a struggle, you might want to try those two websites. We've had pretty good success with them ourselves as well. And the other tip I had was, again, this is in the property management side of things, is if you've got more than 2 or 3 rental properties, it's really nice, especially for your handyman, or if you have maintenance people, to have a keyed system or master keyed system. Again, I'm sure those of you that have more than just a couple of properties have that, but a company I've been using for, oh my goodness, probably over 15 years is called Landlord Locks, and that's all one word, landlordlocks.com, and they have multiple master keyed systems. And what I really like about them is once you install them, I mean, they're just like a quick set lock that you would get at Home Depot, with the exception that you have a master key that anyone can use to open the property. So that could be, you would have as the owner would have a key, maybe your handyman would have a key, that kind of a thing. And they also have a Grand Master key, and the Grand Master key has a little notch in it, which allows you to stick the key in, turn it 90 degrees, pull the cylinder out, either for a deadbolt or a doorknob, and just take it off the key, put the next one or the other cylinder on, stick it in. I mean, it's like a 30-second. It's 30 seconds or probably 15 seconds for a doorknob, and maybe about 45 seconds for the deadbolt, because you have to line up that pin in there. But they're very quick, very easy. And when you're doing turnovers, especially setouts, I really like them for setouts, because not that I like setouts, but you can just change them in a heartbeat, and there's no fuss, there's no muss, and they work great for us. There are other companies out there that do them, but Landlord Locks is reasonably priced. I think they're in Indiana, so you'll get them within a day or two, and we've used them for 15 years. We're very happy with them.
That's just a huge money saver for people who have multiple properties that they're maintaining. You're not spending whole new costs of putting brand new locks in all the time. Just a huge amount of savings there. So
well, the labor's really the big key, because
Correct.
even if you could buy locks in bulk, they're not that expensive at Home Depot. But the fact is, you got to get somebody to sit there. I mean, obviously, somebody's got to have to go out and do it, but you're going to have to unscrew one set, put another set in. That could take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on the door. And this is seconds. I mean, I can't even if I only had one rental property, I would still have them, just because of the ease of use when in between tenants.
And then you can avoid having a guy who has like 87 keys on his key ring. You know, that was always me. I have all these, used to have all these keys for my rental properties until I got the property manager. But then, yeah, and I was always skeptical as can be of like the home advisors and stuff like that. So it's great to know that someone in the coin community has had some really good success using them, because then maybe I will be willing to try it. So thanks for sharing, for sure. Did want to, got a lot of great tips from a lot of other people out there. One of the people that couldn't be here tonight was named Sean Donnelly. I actually have never met Sean, or maybe you have, I just can't remember, because he meets so many people, but I can't put a face to the name on it yet. But he kind of, something we've always talked about a lot with coin is like taking action. You know, it's not a really great, you know, huge tip. It was more just to say, hey, there was a lot of people involved in the coin network. Please, you know, reach out to them, but set a goal and make it happen. Quit trying to stay on the sidelines and jump into the game was kind of his advice that Sean was giving us. So definitely a great tip for some of the people that are maybe haven't gone out and done something. I mean, he basically said network as much as you can with the people that are here, because one of the best things about coin is that we're all willing to meet with you and talk with you and spend some time. I have never had anyone say, man, this guy just won't talk to me, or this person won't talk to me. That's what I always hear about coin, was everyone's willing to network with you, and then decide what it is you're willing to do and do it. And that's what Sean had some advice to give. My wife couldn't make it, but she did have some really good advice that she wanted to add. And she's been handling our Airbnbs, and she's been doing really, really well with it. My wife's a customer service kind of guru person. She loves hosting people and parties and stuff like that. That's what she always loves to do. She used to work for a wedding company where she put together weddings and made sure that, you know, the best day of your life is supposed to be the best day of your life, kind of thing. But what she does is everyone on Airbnbs has all these little pamphlets and ideas of what to do while you're here. Like, you know, ours is down in Short North, so you can go to all the things on the Short North to do. And she has all the restaurants and the outdoor events and stuff to do. But she also, which is really smart, is she put together the rainy day plan. So what if the weather isn't fantastic as you hoped? Because there's going to be someone coming to one of your Airbnbs or visiting, and the weather's not going to be perfect. So she puts together plans for the our customers coming in, so that way they're like not just sitting in the condo that they have. I mean, it's nice, but they came for a reason, and maybe those plans got changed. Well, Jenna tried to put together some plans. So if you're Airbnbers out there, you have people coming, have a rainy day plan ready to go, so that way you can provide it. Boom, we had that one time, and it was our best review that we've had, I think. I mean, they were blown away that a whole day was planned for them, and they didn't even have to think about it. So I thought that was a really good one. Going on, I know Kevin Nosner is here. He had a couple good ideas. Go ahead, Kevin, take it away.
All right, thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. I am a buy and hold investor, so kind of coming from that perspective. And I always start off an investment by making sure you buy it at the right price. And I know that's really hard to do right now, but you know, my old rule of thumb was kind of the 1% rule, which you know, if you're buying it and can repair it for $150K, then you should get $1,500 a month, roughly speaking. So they're hard to come by right now. So that it needs to be adjusted also for a neighborhood as well. You know, there's more appreciation, you know, in certain neighborhoods than others. So so that's something to consider. My other tip was to treat your renters right, and usually they will reciprocate. So I usually, when I have someone new move in, I'll leave a little housewarming gift, a bottle of wine or something, with a card with all my information along with the keys and whatnot. And usually it provides a little bit of goodwill, because as with everything, something may not work, or something, you need a maintenance person to come out and provides a little goodwill, so they understand, like, hey, I'll get someone out there, but puts it off on the right step, in my opinion. My last tip is kind of in regards to dealing with COVID these days, and that's trying to minimize direct contact by using technology. And I'm sure most of the coin folks do this already, but like recording virtual tours or FaceTime tours, or signing leases on your phone as a PDF, collecting rent, obviously electronically. And I'll throw a shout out to my buddy Eric Derflinger, who's on this as well. He actually turned me on to Turbo Tenant. As a lot of you guys probably know, Zillow Rental Manager is now charging $10 per week per listing. And that was kind of my go-to for a while. And Turbo Tenant is kind of a good alternative, a free alternative. And it posts it to Facebook and Craigslist and apartments.com and some paid sites that, for whatever reason, whatever deal they have, it's free if you go through Turbo Tenant. And their interface, you have a one-stop shop interface, so you can contact everyone and see all the communications right on their website. So turbotenant.com, I think, is another good way of getting candidates in, and a good alternative to the rental manager. So appreciate Eric for spending all the time researching all the different options for me. So that's what, yep.
Yeah, that's awesome advice, and that's a great tip right there. I didn't even know that one myself. So everyone, make sure your long-term rent and hold people out there, write that down. I'm a big believer in that relationship. I mean, we network with each other, building relationships. You should be building relationships with your clients as well, because you nailed it on the head. If you're trying to take care of them, they appreciate that. You set the mood on your relationship. Is it a business relationship, or are you really trying to work together? And if you take the first step forward, then they usually will reciprocate. I'm a big believer in that as well too. I wanted to, Chris Stanley, he's been a member of Coin for a long time, almost from the very beginning, I think. Is that about right, Chris?
Yep. Been coming for a long time here, and Coin is awesome. I've had a lot of great meetings with people and a lot of great connections from Coin. So very grateful for what you guys are doing. Great job on this meetup.
Yeah, awesome. You had a couple of good ideas to really kind of consider, and you got some long-term rent and hold strategy stuff too. So take it away, man.
Yeah. So my name's Chris Stanley, and it says Landon Stanley on there. So we were homeschooling my kindergartner, and we used my laptop to do it, and somehow that ended up taking over my Zoom. So every time I get on a Zoom call, it now says Landon instead of Chris. But my name's Chris Stanley, and my wife Kylie and I are buy and hold investors here in Central Ohio, and we have 45 units here in Central Ohio. We've picked those up mainly the past 3 years. We've been on a buying run here, and so the tips I'm going to share are really geared toward that acquisition mode, and then also geared toward buy and hold for the long term, which is what we do. Before I jump into that, I did want to touch on one thing. We've had so many great tips here already. One of the things that Nate and Amanda Roderick mentioned, and then also Brandon Bartlett touched on, is the importance of networking. And the way I like to think about networking is there's a concept of a surface area of success, where kind of the more touch points you have and the more exposure you have to opportunities, you're putting yourself in a position to have better success and create luck for yourself. And that's one of the things that I've found throughout the last specifically 3 years as we've grown. Is one of the things I used to do, I couldn't find a deal anywhere. And so what I would do, I would just drive home from work. I would specifically intentionally take a different route home every day and look for rent signs and call the for rent signs. Just anything that I could do to try and meet people who were out there doing real estate and had access to deals, or maybe had a property that they couldn't rent that I could buy. And by doing that, I spent a ton of time, and most of those calls turned into nothing. But there are some people that I met, specifically 2 realtors that I met that helped me really kind of point me in the right direction and have mentored me through a lot of the past 3 years. And so I think that networking thing is key, but there's also something to having some hustle out there too with your networking and trying to increase that surface area success by just, if you're doing something like driving, try and find a way to call anybody you can or expose yourself to people that might, have some opportunity, and you might have a mutually beneficial relationship with them in the future. So great tips on the networking and all that, guys. But so the 2 tips I had were, number 1, so this is something that happened to me back in 2017. I bought a property and thought I had underwritten the property perfectly, right? I spent a ton of time on it. I kicked the tires on everything, and I had my financial statements where I thought were just absolutely pristine. The one thing I forgot to take into account, being relatively new to buying rental properties, is that the taxes are going to go up after I buy it. And so, when you buy a property, typically the taxes are going to go up because the city sees that this changed hands. They see a new value based on your purchase price, and then you're going to get a bump in your tax coming up. So you got to factor that in. So learning that, luckily that was a pretty small bump for me. It was only $300 a year. So what I did after that is I put in a factor into my underwriting sheet. So whenever I analyze a deal, I would take the new purchase price, knowing that the city would use that as the value, and then I would have a percentage that multiplied that out. And I had to have a different one for different areas, which is pretty inefficient. And then one day here, not too long ago, I was on the auditor's site and I noticed that there's actually a calculator on there. So I think I was probably late to the game on that the auditor's site has a calculator where you can just, type in your new purchase price and it'll spit out what your tax is going to be. So that's a tip there on don't forget to factor that into your underwriting when you're buying a property. The other thing related to that is if you buy a property, then that is going to be a transaction that the city's going to pick up and flag to increase your property tax. However, if you buy an LLC membership interest, that generally is not a trigger the city might not know about. However, I do know of people that this is referred to as a drop and swap, by the way. I think people have heard it, referred to it as that. It's not foolproof. You still might get letters from the city saying, hey, we understand this changed hands. You might still get a tax bill, but the drop and swap is something to maybe Google and look at as well. There are some legal considerations and obviously tax considerations there. So you definitely don't want to go jump into that on your own, but something to look into as well. The second tip I have is I recently bought a couple of properties, and my go-to as far as putting debt on them is I try and get long-term mortgages because that generates typically the highest cash flow. So what I've done historically is try to get those 30-year mortgages with the lowest rate for the longest fixed period that I can. Those are kind of the 3 things I look for. But I came across a bank, Park National Bank, who had just ridiculously low rates for whatever reason. They had 5-1 ARMs at 3.05% for 4-unit and under multifamily. And that's pretty darn good, and I mean, I shop around a lot on, just to see what's out there. I hadn't seen anything touching that for a multifamily rental property. So I had to take a look at it. The problem, what I thought was a problem initially, was the longest amortization they would do at that rate was a 20-year amortization. So, I had underwritten these deals and thought, well, this is going to be great. These are going to cash flow, $1,000 a month. This is going to be perfect. The problem was my cash flow is going to drop because the amortization being on a shorter time period means my debt service is going to be higher. But I sat down because the rent was, or the interest rate was so low. I sat down and ran the numbers and I realized, I actually like these 20-year amortizations because the wealth building on those is actually quite a bit stronger than the 30-year amortization if you have a little bit of a dip in the interest rate. So my other tip there is, if you were like me and you're looking at that cash flow, maybe take a step back and see what else is out there as far as mortgage options go, because sometimes a 20-year AM or a 15-year AM, you might pay a lot less interest, pay down a lot more principal, and have a decent amount more wealth at the end of, say, a 5-year period than you would on a 30-year AM. It all really just depends on your goals. The 30-year AMs are always going to give you more cash flow. The 20-year AMs, you're going to pay less interest. So Be willing to be flexible and look out for, whatever opportunities are out there.
Good advice, man, because those 20-year AMs definitely start. I mean, you're basically jumping ahead in the game. The first 10 years, you're not paying that much in principal unless you're adding extra. So you're going to get a lot different principal reduction. Plus, what you got 45 properties, it start to kind of have a good little mixture of, ones that are making you more money, but then starting to be good, well leveraged and making profit, making equity in as well too. So I didn't realize they had that many properties. I mean, we talk about coin and all the people we can talk to. I mean, 45 properties in basically 3 years. I mean, if you're new to this game, people, and you want someone to talk to, you need to be talking to Chris Stanley, because that is a lot of work. I can't tell you, I know how much work that is to do there. So someone's doing it right. Go talk to Chris. I'm sure he'd be happy to meet with you. So
Absolutely. Yep.
that's
Absolutely.
awesome, man. 45, do you have a day job?
I do. Yeah. I'm a lawyer, but it's my day job.
That's fantastic, man. That's a great story. So, well, great work, man.
Thanks.
Let me see who else I had. I know I didn't get back in touch, but I see that she's on here. Kathy Benner, she sent us one. Kathy, do you want to present your idea? I didn't know if you were okay to do that or not.
Yeah, I'm right here.
All right. Hey, Kathy. Well, yeah. Well,
Hi.
What you kind of provided was something that we all kind of know, but at the same time, I never think it can be repeated too many times. So why don't you share a little bit with us?
Well, if I remember correctly, the tip that I had was location. Is that the one you're talking about?
Location, location, location. Absolutely.
Right. And the reason that that's a great tip and that I wanted to bring it up was because a lot of times when you have some newbies that are buying some real estate for the first time, they think, well, I'm going to buy this, and if I can't rent it, then I'll sell it. And if I can't sell it, then I'll rent it. And what I've discovered is that a flip property and a rental property is oftentimes in a totally separate type location. You have rental neighborhoods, and then you have owner-occupied neighborhoods. So my best advice is, if you're going to flip a property, that you want to actually buy one that's in a neighborhood of owner-occupants, because that's your audience. That's who's going to be looking at that property when you're finished with all of your rehab. But if you're going to hold one for rent, oftentimes I've discovered, especially in my experience, and kind of like some of the folks that you've already talked to and have already shared, I'm just now up to 30 units. And I've discovered that if I'm going to hold one long-term and rent it, that I want to get into a good rental neighborhood, because I want that sweet spot where those folks are just going to rent forever. And so location, location, location. That's my tip.
Yeah, and the thing is you hold that rule in your head, and it allows a million pivots to every single property that you have. It just makes everything work. One of the things I see people sometimes run into problems is when they have a property in a bad or unique location. Unique's not always the best thing either, because then you just shrunk the amount of people that actually want that property, and you want to expose yourself to the most amount of people.
That is correct.
So
and I found also, when I talk about location, sometimes it's just even what town I'm in. When we start to buy property, and we're now expanding out around Ohio, we have some in Sandusky, we have some in Springfield. We actually are looking for cities or small towns, either one, that actually is a higher percentage of rentals versus owner occupants, because our portfolio is still all buy and hold.
Yeah. So you're basically saying, hey, here's a strategy that I'm working with, and if I have to go to other places to get it, let's go to those places.
Correct. Yep. And we're having great success.
Yep. You got me actually thinking, because I've been thinking about getting outside of Columbus, because I know Columbus is so hard to make the numbers work. Every single rent and hold person here is experiencing that. The last little tip that I can give everybody that I've been noticing, at least specifically for Columbus, is it is really hard to get the numbers to work unless you find an amazing steal of a deal in Columbus. the cash flow is not there. And what I've been telling a lot of my people that I work with, because I'm in the mortgage lending world, I have a lot of, investors who are buying. I go, you're not doing your cash flow numbers on today's numbers. You're having to look at, what am I going to rent this thing for next year? Because the prices just keep going up. And as the prices go up, the rents will go up, but they're usually about a year behind. So you kind of have to change your thought process. But I like what you're doing there, is you're going to other areas where the, kind of the old style of thinking still does work.
Yes, it does.
In Cleveland, going to Dayton is a great area, and different places like that. So thanks a lot for the information, Kathy. That's really about all the tips that we got. We had a lot of great input. I can never stress enough, talk to people, pull out the coin directory, meet with people. Even in this COVID time, it's great to, make a call. You can still do some social distancing coffee if you're okay with that. But connecting is almost as important as location. So that's all I got. Great meeting, everybody. Jim, you're going to come back in and give us some information about next month, right?
Yeah. First of all, this was great. These tips were amazing. I got a couple of tips to add. One is, I don't want to get anybody's a big head here, but don't doubt Mark when he's got a coin topic idea, because that killed it. I thought this was an awesome meeting. I wasn't so sure about it at the beginning when he came up with the idea, but Mark, that was fantastic. You did a great job. Everybody who contributed, I appreciate that. Some of the things that hit me was, Ryan, be dependable. I love that. Brandon, connect with others, and Chris, the surface area of success, all those things. It's connect. And it just reminds me, that's why we got this group together, was to network and to educate, and just to see the people responding to each other. That's why this group is here. And, usually at the beginning of these meetings, when we used to be in person in olden times, I would have people raise your hand if you've done business with somebody in the room, and then raise your hand if you've done business with someone in the room that you met through coin. And I think just listening to everyone give their tips and going back and forth, it is clear that people are doing business together and people are connecting, and that's what this group is about. So I'm super excited that is happening. One last tip I will add is find a podcast and listen to it. There are a ton of real estate podcasts out there, and every one that I listen to has a guest that leads me to another one, and pretty soon I'm learning something, right? And then I did a complete shift of my business. I'm completely passive syndications now, and a lot of that is through the podcast that I listen to, and I found out that I don't really want to own units myself. I'd rather do it passively, and really I've learned a lot through the podcast, and then I've connected with those people that I've met. So the connections we're getting at Coin, you can take those to another level if you listen to some podcasts and connect with people outside of our group as well. So that was my kind of cap on that. But thank you, Mark. I think you did a fantastic job. Thank you to everybody who contributed. I would like to remind everybody, next month, the meeting is August 18th. And now that Nick is on here, I'm going to say his last name correctly this time. Nick Karakayan is going to be on with Paul. They're from Nesters, and they're going to talk about redesign, flipping, and how to make spaces look awesome and be functional. So you'll get emails about that. And that is August 18th. And I will post a recording of this if you missed the beginning, because I noticed a couple of people jumped in late. And thank you, Liz, for the comment on my quarantine beard. It's almost over. Yes.
I forgot. And I would be terrible to miss it. Okay. I can't believe I missed Sarah Karakayan's tips. She gave me one specific one that I think would be perfect to end the meeting with, by the way. Okay.
Great.
Everyone knows Sarah. Everyone loves Sarah. Sarah's fantastic. And Sarah gave me some great advices, and I didn't get them all. And I apologize, Sarah, because I didn't get them, because you had several I was going to give. However, she has something that is very, very important, dear to her heart, that she is trying to rid the world of. And it is installing boob lights. And yes, I said boob lights, because it's those lights that you just look like a boob, and they get the little finial at the top. She says, never, 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 never put those in your house. I don't care if you're renting a house, you're selling a house, you're burning a house. She wants to rid the world of boob lights.
Thank you. That is a good way to end. Please don't Google boob lights. Just trust us. They're not worth having. And with that, thank you all again. We look forward to seeing you next month. And please, if you're not getting emails from me, let me know and I'll include you. But otherwise, have a great night. Thank you very much.